The esoteric approach won't fail. Tune in. It's time for Common Man. Common Man, Common Man. Charge the housewives like no one can. What you shoot? Word we play. Non-stop nonsense on deck today. Tune in. It's time for Common Man.
Oh, boy. Why should anybody aspire to be a common man, an average man? Do you realize what it means to be average? That means you're the best of the lousiest, and the lousiest of the best. Now, if we demand more and more for producing less and less, while the have-not nations encourage and inspire and indeed require hard work and maximum effort, if we deify the common men while they encourage and reward the uncommon ones, well, the end result of such a lopsided race as that is too obvious to require elaboration.
I mean, it's like, hello?
Sometimes when you practice, you'll set up chairs. And you run through chairs just to show zones and stuff. The Viking defense looks like it's chairs. All the defensive backs covering are just atrocious today for the Minnesota Vikings.
Straight up. Cash in, cash out, cash in, cash out, cash in, cash out, cash in, cash out, 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 cash in, cash out, cash in, cash out, cash in, cash out.
We've never, made excuses or alibis, and we're damn sure not crybabies.
Rosa, you don't know nothing.
NFL's nothing but a racket.
Stop! That was probably Zimmer being Zimmer.
I'm going to say something controversial.
That's interesting.
A dog with a note in his mouth should be able to sell those Ravens.
This is not Detroit, man. This is the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl, homeboy. I want to win, and I want to win now.
He's the clown from Brown. He's the fourth in the north.
And sinking.
This is the common man, Dan Cole.
Not really. Hey, a little act, you and yours. I'm the common man, Dan Cole. And every time I think of Treasure Island and the PowerTrip morning show, I just start to laugh. When is that? When is that coming up soon?
I think it's coming up this weekend.
They just the Treasure Island takeover. They take over Treasure Island. Everywhere you turn, you'll see the PowerTrip. Meat Sauce Cove, Hockey, Tommy Olson, Ben Lieber, Marnie Kellner. Who else? Hundreds and hundreds of people everywhere.
Hundreds?
They've taken over Treasure Island. Before I even walked in the door, I saw three of my coworkers. I was pulling into the ramp, and there was Meat Sauce and Corey Cove.
Really?
I said, "Why are you guys still here?" And they go, "Ripping." Apparently, they were ripping people. Yeah. And I saw Zacco come in too, so ran into three people just like that. Then I went over. When I get here, and the youngsters and the sales staff are all over in their little corner over there. I like to hold court. Like to give them free show. And I still think they get a kick out of it. I mean, there are times I can tell where they don't have, the problem with those guys, they just have cubes. They don't have offices where they can close the door.
Yes.
Like all of a sudden, Abbott will see me coming because I come around the corner and he's got a perfect angle to the entranceway, right? And all of a sudden I'll see him on the phone and then he'll come around his desk with the phone still on and he'll push the door closed. And then, of course, that's the cue for Lil B. She can't see me coming in. She knows that's the cue. If the door's closing, that means Common's here. So her door closes. And doors just start closing everywhere. And then I noticed...
You know how when they try to rob a gas station or convenience store and they got the little button under the counter that they can hit? You know they all have their secret button they hit to let everyone know Common's coming.
Yeah, they could very well. And then there's the... and then you'll see people pick up the phone. You know, all of a sudden, I see like 5 salespeople all pick up a phone at the exact same time, right? You're all getting a call exactly at the same time. But the youngsters still get kind of a kick out of it. And I asked Clayton, I said, do you know the get in that chair and stay in that chair story? He had never heard it. And, you know, I really don't like to talk about myself or repeat things. And I'm sure there are many in the audience that have been here over the years that know the get in that chair and stay in that chair story. You know it very well, Timothy.
Yes.
It's one of my favorites of all time. It's about me in large part. And I don't generally like talking about myself. But I thought it'd be fun to recant that tale, particularly because I got nothing. And so apparently the Wolves didn't have much either last night. Ant was tuckered. He was still recovering from the flu. They can't beat Sac.
And
apparently at Bullseye,
even without their best player, they just traded away.
Yeah, and without Bullseye, or at Bullseye, did I read that right? Have they lost to Sac 5 in a row at Bullseye?
Yes.
What do they think they are? The Minnesota Wild? Can't win at home. So this was back in the Chad and Burrow. I'm assuming. Do you think what percentage of our listeners know that used to be the Chad and Burrow show? Chad Hartman, the heir to the House of Sydney, and Dan Burrow used to be a duo in the afternoons here. That was back when I first arrived here in 1993. And I think they'd been doing a show together since like 92 or early 93. And so I was hired on with the capable Carl Allen to do weekends. They gave us a month of weekends and we'll see how it goes. We would do anywhere from an hour show to like a 5-hour show. They'd slot us in like between Westwood 1 football games. You know, Notre Dame's playing Tennessee 11-2, and then you're going to be on from 2 until 4 before we go and bring you UCLA versus Oregon. You know, so we'd fill in for those for that time period. And they needed Chad Brewer had a producer. They also had a sidekick board operator update guy, right? And he was leaving. I can't remember if he was leaving on his own volition. I kind of remember they weren't really thrilled. Chad Brewer hold people to high standards, trust me. And so they actually offered the job up to the capable Carl Allen. They didn't want me. They thought this guy's maybe a loose cannon, not very bright or whatever. And then Capes didn't want it. He said, I don't want to do it. So then I was like...
Why didn't he want to do it?
Because I think he just wanted to be a talk show host. So I became, I was first runner-up.
Yeah.
First alternate, sort of John Daly-like, So I said, sure.
I, too, was a first runner-up to Capable Carl.
Yes, you were. That's exactly right. Because I was going to ask Capes if he would take the job.
Yeah.
And it's paying $5 an hour. That's what it paid.
That's about accurate.
$5 an hour.
When I first started, that's about accurate.
$5 an hour, and I needed the dough. They were only paying... We were getting $100 each for a weekend talk show, whether it was an hour or 5 hours. $100. Give me $100.
Give me $100.
That was what it was. So I needed the work, So I was, because I'd quit my other job. I was working at the Forest Lake radio station doing news and sports, and I said, hey, I got this opportunity, a month of weekends. And Ed and Joanne, God bless them, said, no, they're our competition. I go, competition? We're on the fringe of the Twin Cities doing country and western and local news and sports, and this is an AM station because we're FM dial. That's in Minneapolis talking sports. Nope, can't do it. So I had to make a choice: stay with the cushy job that I could, that I could do without any. But what, Tennessee, I had to take that chance. I didn't want to have to look back and say, what could have been, right? So I leave. I get the job. I'm on the Chad and Burrow show. I used to love it when I think they went through 3 or 4 producers in the time I was there. There was Bulldog Leary. Adam Crystal, Sammy Sigelman. There might have even been another producer. And when they'd walk into the door for their first shift over to Master Control, I'd go, I'll give you 6 months. They go, what do you mean? In 6 months, you're going to hate it. You're going to want to leave. You're not going to like this job at all. And about 6 months later, they would leave, except Sammy Sigelman stuck with it for a long time. And then he finally realized There's no money in this. He goes to law school, and now he's a flamboyant, high-profile attorney making hundreds? I assume hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. I think he made the right choice, Tenneby. A decision that you might have to make one of these days, too. So, Hartman's out. He's traveling with the Wolves. Barrero's on, and he's got a guest on. And at this point, I never listen to the guests, right? As soon as a guest comes on, that's my cue to, hey, I got 10 minutes. I can go wander around the building and do free show for people, right? And back then I was still smoking, so I could go have a heater, go to the sales office and tell them how I'd be running the place if I was in charge, right? Well, back then with the control panel, do you have like dials? Not only was it the control board, but we had this big panel to our right. And it was all kinds of buttons to push and such like that. And we were an ABC News affiliate back then, right? ABC News and Sports. And so they would have these news feeds. I don't know, maybe we still have them now, where all of a sudden it'd be closed circuit, wouldn't go over there to go, okay, stations, this is the 5 o'clock news feed. We have 17 cuts today. The first one is President Bush, 17 seconds. And the out cue is we're going to change the name to the Gulf of America. Coming down in 3, 2, and 1, and then it would be the soundbite, right?
I don't want to sound like I've made no mistakes. I'm confident I have. Just put me under the spot here, and maybe I'm not as quick on my feet as I should be.
And then you would take that soundbite and include it in a newscast, right? Well, when you had a guest on the air, there was one button that you had to pull out. It was a push-in button, right? Push in, cash in, cash out, cash in, cash out. So push in, push out. And if you didn't push it out or pull it out, the guest could hear what was ever going on. So I'm out of the room. I got the timing down. I know the interview's about to wrap up. And I come, all of a sudden the door swings open and Barrero goes, get in that chair, stay in that chair, we'll find somebody who will. And I go, you can't talk to me that way. So then the show continues. Nothing is said between us the rest of the show. He didn't need to. I was in the wrong. He said, I shouldn't have yelled at you like that. And he had every right to. And I said, no, you had every right to. I should have been in there, because what had happened was, because I didn't pull that button out, the guest goes, Dan, I can't hear you. There's somebody else talking in my ear. Okay, stations. So for have to put him on hold, it was very awkward.
You've got to be kidding me.
So at the end of the show, Barrero goes, after, we talked a little bit, he goes, Chad and I have been kind of wondering, you don't seem to be as engaged in the show as you once were. Do you even really want to do this anymore? And boom. I went, no, I don't. And that was the beginning
You're like, you read my mind.
Yeah, that was just beautiful. Then I had to go to Westerman, who was the PD at the time, and I go, I'm done. I'm only going to do 1 to 3, or what about 6 to 7? I go, no, figure something out. He goes, and this was the other lane. Couldn't you just go hit a bucket of balls and come back? So he wanted me to go to Braemar Golf Dome and hit balls for, 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and then come back. I said, I ain't going to do that. So I took my work day from, 1 to 7. That's 6 hours?
Yeah.
I cut it down to 2 hours with 1 to 6. Why didn't I think of it sooner? And the rest is.
And you were still getting paid the same?
And I was still getting paid the same.
Wow.
Get in that chair. Stay in that chair. We'll find somebody who will. We'll take a break. We'll come back. Tenby's got, speaking of cash, this would be more than $5 an hour if you end up winning, because I think it's a $1,000 prize, right, Tenby?
Yep. The Fan wants to give you a shot to put $1,000 in your hand with our national cash contest. Enter the keyword credit at KFAN.com. Now for your shot of winning. That keyword is credit. Enter now at KFAN.com. You know him from the Bad Boys franchise. Now see him live at Mystic Lake. Actor and comedian Martin Lawrence is bringing the Y'all Know What It Is tour to the Mystic Showroom on May 2nd and 3rd. Check out our contest page now to see how you can win your way into the May 2nd show. That's KFAN.com. Keyword contest to enter.
Of the name of the band this sounds like, but doesn't this, from the very beginning right to this point, it's like, I really believe that it's licensed music, but it's not really music. It's music, but I don't know if it's studio musicians or AI created, but I think much of it is basically
Does it have a little Sausalito summer night to it right there?
Well, what it's really got to me is something like an Eagles feel, or some kind of a West Coast California back in those days. They had Poco, the Eagles, Jackson Brown. It's got kind of that kind of a sound to it.
What about Steve Miller Band?
Yeah, maybe even a little Steve Miller Band. I think that would be. I would think that would probably be accurate. Time now for Peek at the Purple, brought to you by my friends at Affordable Electric. If you've gone EV with your car, truck, or SUV, let family-owned Affordable Electric get you powered up by installing a Level 2 EV charging system. And I think you'll like it. Go ahead and reach out to them today. That's affordable-electric.com. Affordable Electric is shockingly affordable. Peek at the Purple. There are NFL Honors Show. Is that Thursday night? I think that's the Thursday before the big game. It'll be on the NFL Network and on Fox. It's a big time. When your weeknights on the regular over-the-air networks, it's a big deal because a lot of the more narrow-casted, like if you want to watch the Dubai Classic, right, in golf, you're not going to catch that on NBC. You're going to get it on Golf Channel, right? But apparently NFL Honors is going to be on the big station on Fox. The Vikings have finalists for 3 awards, tend to be on NFL Honors. Head coach Kevin O'Connell for Coach of the Year. Defensive coordinator Brian Flores for Assistant Coach of the Year.
Yeah.
And Sam Darnold for Comeback Player of the Year. Now, I'm reading from a Fish Wrap Factory West Side piece. Says Darnold's recognition comes against some odds as the Associated Press's guidance for the award states it is intended for, quote, a player who has demonstrated resilience in the face of adversity by overcoming illness, physical injury, or other circumstances that led him to miss playing time the previous season. Voters were left to interpret other circumstances as they see fit. The other finalists, Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow, Chargers running back J.K. Dobbins, Patriots cornerback Christian Gonzalez, and Bills safety Damar Hamlin, all returned to significant playing time this season after injuries or other medical issues in the past 2 years. Hamlin's the guy that they had to start his heart on the field, right?
That was 2 years ago, though, wasn't it? Like he was back last year.
Right, but I don't know why that's why it says here, it says, circumstances, return to significant playing time this season after injuries or other medical issues in the past 2 years. So I don't know why. You would have thought, well, he would have had to have won last year.
Or maybe he had another injury. I don't know.
Could be. If he didn't win it the year before, I don't know who would. I mean, he was basically...
Correct.
He was almost dead and gone.
Yeah.
He had to be brought back. Physical injury or other circumstances that led him to miss playing time the previous season. Well, the other circumstances, he was playing behind Brock Purdy in the San Francisco 49ers offensive line, and there was no room for him. So couldn't you interpret that as that's a circumstance?
Nobody wanted him.
Yeah, that was a circumstance. Yeah. There was no way he was going to play unless there would be an injury. My line I've always used, it's one of my favorites. How can you come back from a place you've never been before? Right? That's when they, like in Darnold's case, he's never had a season like this, right? Never. I mean, he was drafted by the Jets. We know the story, right? Drafted by the Jets, had mixed results, but mostly poor results. Then he went, to Carolina? Mixed results, but mostly poor results. And then he went to San Francisco, and he didn't get a ring, but he got to a big game, and watching and seeing how a big time organization really runs. The culture of a big time organization that has a winning culture. But because he's never come back from, it's not as though he was brilliant for a year or two, and then all of a sudden he just has bad years. That's, for me, comeback player, and I guess injury probably is the best one. And I don't know how often it happens where a player isn't very good. He's good. He's a really good player, some great years, and all of a sudden he goes into a slump, and he's not very good, and then he gets back to the thrilling days of yesteryear. That would be, to me, I don't have the names, and maybe I should have looked them up before I started this. This is where Abbott, because I'm going to ask you, can you find the names of the other candidates for Coach of the Year and Assistant of the Year? Now, Abbott will say, You could have looked that up before he went on the air, and he's right. But I have to decide, do I prepare for the show, or do I give the sales staff free show and pump them up and get them excited and get them laughing? You know, I'm trying to raise morale around here is what I'm trying to do, Tennessee. Oh, I have to read this one. This is so good. This is a text message that came in on the Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line, 64686. After I started the show, we were poking fun at the morning show because it's always so funny, right? This one says, it's cute how jealous of the PowerTrip show you are. Now, Tennessee, you know me pretty well. There might be some envy, but there certainly isn't any jealousy. It's the whole bit. It's like, I've been doing this bit forever. It's like, and they know it, and they poke fun at me too, from what I'm told, is that I pretend I'm envious and jealous of the PowerTrip and meet such, that's why we always do the bit. We'd sure like to go to Las Vegas. That'd sure be nice. I really don't want to go to Las Vegas, but we've been doing the bit for years, so I
would want to go to Las Vegas.
Well, I know you would. Well, I would, if they pay, I guess I would, if you could convince me to go, but it's not like I'm just like, God, I wish I could go to. You got to pack and go to the airport, get on a plane and fly and get your luggage and get your car and go to the...
Spend $130 every time you have dinner.
Right, yeah. And then, of course, I make that back because I'm pretty good at gambling. And that's not even... It's what's crazy is I don't even really enjoy... I don't mind it. I just do it occasionally. But for somebody that just does it occasionally and it's not really one of his favorite hobbies, it's amazing how good I am at gambling.
The other Coach of the Year nominees.
Okay.
Your guy, Dan Campbell.
Okay.
Dan Quinn. Andy Reid. Sean Payton.
You're a extended family member.
Yep.
But I think you're also able to step back and say, you know what? I love him, but he's not the guy. Or do you think he is the guy? Is he the one you would select?
He's not losing to Sean Payton.
No.
And then, Andy Reid and Dan Campbell, whether it's right or not, you might even disagree with it, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree with you, but when you are on teams that are heavily favored at the beginning of the year, and you meet expectations, they both had great years, but for some reason, Coach of the Year, people love the coach that took that team that wasn't in the playoffs last year.
That's correct. That is correct.
Right?
And I tend to agree with that.
Because of that, I don't think Campbell or Reid will get it. So it's got to be KOC or Dan Quinn.
And
given, I get that Dan Quinn had a rookie quarterback to work with, but given KOC had a quarterback that was basically the last quarterback chosen on any team in the offseason, right? Like everyone else in the league already had their starting quarterback, and they're like, all right, let's bring in Sam Darnold. And given what he had done in his previous 5-6 years before KOC took over and the reclamation project he turned that into,
you're going with Kevin O'Connell.
I think KOC is going to win it.
I think he's going to win it too. But I'm saying, do you think he should? If you had a vote,
yeah, I think he should.
I'd vote for Dan Campbell. It has nothing to do with my Lions. No, the only reason you could make an argument for Campbell would be
all the injuries.
And especially when they went up against the Vikings with everything at stake, they killed them. So you got to put coaching into that. So now you can't just take individual games and matchups, but the most important game of the year could have changed everything for the Purple. Could have, not necessarily. First round bye, 2 home games. If you can get to, if you can get past your first one, you're going to have another home game. Only have 2, and they laid an egg. They just did. But I would say O'Connell or Quinn, I wouldn't have a issue with either one winning. Probably O'Connell. I guess I probably would vote O'Connell. Though Quinn, because they did get to that NFC Championship game. Maybe we'll take a look, too, at assistant coach, too. Take a look at that and see who those candidates are. Let's Peek at the Purple, brought to you by Affordable Dash Electric, 24-hour or emergency service, and they will not start any work until they give you an estimate. Go to affordable-electric.com today. Affordable Electric, shockingly affordable. Back with more after this here on The Fan.
Grand in Your Hand is back on KFAN. We have 9 chances for you to win $1,000 every weekday. That's every hour from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. To enter the keywords and learn more, head to KFAN.com.
Let me ask you a question. Were you able to find out the list of assistant coach of the year candidates? We know our pal B-Flow is one of them. Who are the others?
Your guy, Ben Johnson, offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. Aaron Glenn, defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions.
Or formerly of the Detroit Lions and formerly.
Sure, I should say,
both were formerly, yeah.
Vic Fangio, defensive coordinator for the Go Eagles.
Hell of a job Vic did this year.
And then Bills offensive coordinator Joe Brady.
Ben Johnson wins it in a landslide.
I would think so.
I mean, that offense was breaking records again. And then he gets the promotion to he accepts the offer for the head job at the Bears. I would think he wins. So I think, we'll get a Viking and a Lion in there. And then, someone had texted, Hamlin only played a handful of snaps last year, so that's why he's being considered for this year. I would think he's a shoo-in then, right? I mean, I just don't know how he loses that. We're just a couple of weeks away, Tennessee, speaking of the Vikings, from franchise and transition tag. Starts February 18th and runs through March 4th. Teams have a 15-day window to tag the free agent players with either franchise or transition tags before the signing period begins. I guess the one player the Vikings will have to consider will be aforementioned quarterback, comeback player of the year candidate, Sam Darnold. They could tag Darnold, Tennessee, if they want to keep him around for another season without committing long-term, right?
Yeah.
Another year, one more. Hey, see how it goes. Maybe make sure that, I believe McCarthy will be coming back from his injury without any issues. I don't know where he is on the...
He's lost a lot of weight, apparently.
Has he?
But I noticed it, too, when they showed him, was it the Detroit game they showed him on the sideline? Walking around, and I've met him in person and thought he was relatively sculpted. And then when I saw him on TV, I'm like, man, he looks thin. So I think he has lost a lot of weight.
You wouldn't confuse him with Luka Doncic then?
No.
As far as Luka's apparently a little chubby, they say, right? He doesn't like to work out. That's the one thing Luka and I have in common. The estimated for Darnold will be almost $40 million a year, like 39.5. He could also be tagged by the Vikings and then traded.
Sure.
It's another option they could do. And whether the Vikings tag Darnold or not could be a substantial clue as to how they look at their 2025 quarterback outlook. As you'll remember, Tennessee, neither Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah or Kevin O'Connell, they didn't make any kind of commitment at quarterback in their season-ending news conferences. So I'm going to ask you, and I probably already asked you this before, it's a two-part question. What do you think the Vikings would do, and what would you do? Because they could be different, right? You might think, well, they're going to do this, but I would do that. What would you do if you were? And this probably comes a caveat. So you have to know where McCarthy is on the recovery, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But let's say he's going to be fine, that he would be ready to play. He's going to be ready for training camp. As far as physically, he's fine. He's maybe still on his learning curve, blah, blah, blah. But he's on his. What would you do?
If there's no physical limitations, I am letting Sam Darnold ride into free agency, and I'm going to start J.J. McCarthy and find a competent veteran backup, maybe a Daniel Jones or a Daniel Jones type.
Okay.
To give me some J.J. McCarthy insurance.
How about Aaron Rodgers? Would you take him as a backup? He might. So you don't like the tag and trade possibility, because if you tag him and trade him, now I don't know how that works. Are you responsible for part of the money and this and that? Because if you could, if you just let him go into free agency, you get nothing in return, obviously. But if you could tag him and trade him, I don't know what you'd get for him. Would you? I don't think you're going to get a couple of ones and a couple of twos, but you might be able to get a nice pick or not.
I get the business savvy of trying to add draft picks to a draft pool that is already depleted. I think I heard Ben Lieber talk about this a couple months ago, that there's nothing against the rules of doing it, but it's just kind of a bad look in terms of, if you want players to come play for you in the future, like that guy put up that type of a season for you, and then you're going to be like, well, we're now going to determine where you're going to go.
Yeah.
And you're also keeping Sam from maximizing the amount of money he can make. So there's going to be bitterness with the player, and you can do it, but it just might make other players in the future pause on whether they would want to play here. So I just don't know if it's worth it for whatever you could get for him.
Yeah, that probably makes sense. What do you think they'll do?
The other thing is what if you tag him and you can't trade him?
Well,
Yeah,
there's always that. What do you think they'll do? Do you think they'll do what?
I think they're going with JJ.
Yeah, I think
they're going with what I would go with.
I think so. This text message says, is Sammy D offering the Vikings a hometown discount? He should, because the Vikings brought his career to life after everyone else left him for dead. I understand your sentiment, but it's a dog-eat-dog world out there, man. I'm sorry. I mean, it's like, you know what I'm saying? It's not like, if they came to me and came to my agent and go, if it wasn't for us taking a chance on him and having quarterback whisper in his ear, you'd probably be out parking cars and pumping gas in San Jose, right? And you can say, that's all true, but we still want the money. I mean, I'm sorry. I understand, but I'm not, and when you say hometown discount, what kind of a discount we get?
That's what I was going to bring up.
He ain't going to work for $10 million again.
Yes.
$20 million is probably not enough. I mean, if tagged, he gets 40. A hometown discount's going to be, I don't know.
He'll make $30 million a year plus.
Yeah.
He's going to get a Baker Mayfield 3-year, $100 million type contract. So just to assume he's going to come here for, oh sure, I'll sign with you for 3 years, $45 million. That ain't going to happen.
Well, and especially,
and why would he do that?
And especially, your agent and you, the player, are going to want some answers about, well, what are your plans for me? I mean, am I starting again? Am I the guy, or is this just an insurance policy? I mean, it's an expensive insurance policy, so I guess the question's probably answered already. If you did franchise him or even gave him a hometown discount, that'd probably mean you're going to play him, right? Nobody's got a backup quarterback making $30 million a year, right? So that would probably mean you're going to start him, but then for how long? And
what was the Kirk Cousins line when he left for Atlanta about it's not how much the money contract is, it's what the contract means or something like that?
Yeah, I think I know what he's...
And how much the Vikings would be willing to spend on Sam Darnold would signify what that means in terms of what his future is here.
That's exactly right.
So if they're not willing to go all in and give him the contract he'd make on the open market, then he knows, well, I'm not the future guy here necessarily.
This one says, hey guys, the Vikings will likely get a third-round compensatory pick based on what he will get paid if he walks, so we don't get anything. It just won't kick in until 2026, and several other people are suggesting the same thing. So you're going to get... And compensatory third really means first pick in the fourth round or last pick in the third. So let's just say, to me, it's a fourth round pick. It's the first pick in the fourth round. That's better than nothing. And I don't know if you could get that much for him on the open market. I mean, everybody knows, these guys all got it figured out. If you were to sign Sam Darnold, let's say you sign him for $39.5 and then turn around and said, who wants him? Well, they know you want to trade him now. So there's going to be several teams that might want him, and they're all going to, you're kind of up against now because you want to trade him. I don't know how much we really want to give you for it. You see what I'm saying?
Well, back to the email, too, of he should take the hometown discount after all we did for him.
Mm-hmm.
How about we should pay him for all what he did for us?
Well, that's
he just gave us, for a while, he was in the MVP conversation.
Yeah.
He gave a Pro Bowl performance on a $10 million contract.
That is correct.
So he ain't the only one getting something out of this situation.
And he made for an exciting season. It was as enjoyable. The Vikings, I know we don't have any big game world championships, Tennessee. I know we're 0-6 in our last 6 NFC championship games. So that last one, we weren't that far out of it. Touchdown, 2-point conversion, onside kick, touchdown, 2-point conversion. If you remember, the whole theme of the season was bring it home, and then we ended up watching from home. But that's a whole other story in itself. But they've provided fans, I think, with also, I mean, it's always been heartbreaking at the end, but how much excitement has there been over the years? You had great seasons to get to big games. get to NFC Championship games, that means the season was really good, too. You had your years of Peterson and Carter and Moss and Johnny Randall and the Purple People Eaters and Favre. And, I mean, there's been a lot of really good football, right? It's been a lot of fun. So the Vikings do provide that, and last year was as good. I mean, you put that season, then 2 seasons ago when we had all the one-score wins and went 13-4, of course, Danny Dimes beat us, but that was another exciting season. The Buffalo game was as good as it gets. Was that also the Jefferson catch game? Did that happen in the Buffalo game? Or,
yes, that was against Buffalo.
Yeah, and so...
Greatest catch I've ever seen.
Yeah, and then we had Minneapolis Miracle. I mean, so it's not like it's been, like my other club, the Lions, they're really over the years, other than up until the last 2 years, it really offered up nothing.
Well, theirs are entertaining in how they lose.
Well, that's true. That's true. That's where
different ways.
The different ways, the most incredible ways they got to lose. But I believe I'm falling in love. Wolves lost the game last night, Tennessee. They played Sack, and Sack was without. They had just they had dealt De'Aaron Fox for Zach LaVine, right?
Yeah,
and LaVine didn't even play last night, right? And they still beat the Wolves 116-114. So close game, went down to the bitter end. DeRozan had 33. Monk had 26. And the way it's written in the Fish Wrap Factory, it's Chris Hine writing the story. He says the two of them teamed up to exploit a weakened Wolves defense in a 116-114 victory over the Wolves, the 5th consecutive win for the Kings in Minnesota dating back to January 2023. They both found their way to the hoop for easy layups in the final minutes to prevent the Wolves from coming back on a night. Sack led most of the way. Here's what Coach Chris Finch said. We committed a cardinal sin. We got into an up-and-down scoring affair with a team that really likes to score it. We had to make this game about defense, and we weren't able to do that. Wolves allowed 38 points in the first quarter, and while the starters had plenty of scoring punch of their own, their bench was lacking in production, 1 of 11 from three-point range, and then the starters couldn't get stops in the closing minutes. Sack scored at least 1 point in every possession it had inside of 3 minutes. They had a chance to tie with 6.1. Jaden McDaniels lost the ball out of bounds. He had 22 last night. And I go back to the quote from, and Nas had 30. Nas. So he had another nice game offensively, and my guess is defensively as well. Well, maybe not defensively, because that's where the team was having their trouble. And that's why I go back to the quote from Finch. He says, we committed a cardinal sin. We got into an up-and-down scoring affair with a team that really likes to score. We had to make this game about defense, and we weren't able to do that. And that goes back to, and I'm going to pick on the Wolves again, and they aren't the only team guilty of this. We talk about this all the time, and I know people think that I pick on the NBA too much and that, I make accusations about their effort, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. And I get a lot of pushback from people that, they do in the NFL too. What about baseball? What about it just seems to me it's more obvious in the NBA. And so, we've talked about this. In the NBA, it's more, at any level of basketball, would you rather be a guy that puts the ball in the hole a lot and scores and slam dunks and hits three? Or would you rather be a guy that has to dog their best player around the court over and over and over again, and you just get exhausted covering the guy? You really don't get any glory for that. Most guys like to score. You've heard me say this a million times. Every guy in the NBA was a scorer when growing up. From third grade in-house, through travel, through high school, AAU, and college, if they even, for the short time they played in college, they put the ball in the hole. But then once you get to the NBA, everybody can. So it's like, I know you think you're a great scorer, you're not. We got other guys. We got Anthony Edwards on the team. We don't need you to score. We've got Steph Curry to fill it up. We need you to do other things like play defense, and play defense. And some guys don't want to do it. Or they pick their spots when they do it. And so the Wolves, Finch says this is a team that likes to score. We decided we're going to go toe-to-toe with them and punch for punch. And I don't think we score. I don't have any numbers in front of me. It just doesn't seem. I don't think our offense is efficient as it was last year. I don't think. Not that our offense was that. It was defense is what we've sort of hung our hat on. But when you had Bodega Cat, who, by the way, they won last night. Bodega was very good again. Double-double. You know what my favorite lines is? We talk about the Barkley, Kenny the Jet, and Shaq all the time. You ever hear the time when they were talking about, I think it was Lorenzo Ball and Chuck goes, see, Lorenzo had a triple single. A triple single. That's a good cheap shot. He had a triple single is what he had. Shaq just couldn't stop. He was almost crying.
It's genius.
Triple single. Then he said, I can't remember what the other line was. He had 2 months. He goes, he something about you didn't play. And he goes, well, he didn't play either. He only got 2 more points than I did. So that was a pretty good line there. But, yeah, and so that's what so I guess I question a little bit of basketball IQ. Because shouldn't you, as a player, be able to figure out we really need to play defense here? We need to shut this team down if we're serious about winning the ball game. But then again, I wonder, because as teams take a look as they matriculate down their schedule, and they know, you pretty much got a fairly good idea who's going to make the top 8 and who's not, right? And the Wolves are on that fringe. Where are they right now? Are they in the top 8? I know they had a nice winning streak.
They were, at least before, yeah.
So you kind of know. So then do you really concern yourself with it that much? Because unless you can get that first seed or even the second, and that doesn't seem plausible now, I don't think. I don't have the schedules in front of me. But
they're currently 7th.
Yeah.
Game and a half behind the Clips for 6. They're just only a game and a half clear, though, of Golden State, who is 11th.
Okay. And how far are they out of, the first or second seed, which are the ones you want to be either 1 or 2, I think.
They're 7 out of 2 seeds.
So more than likely they're not getting there unless they go on some kind of a crazy run.
But you want to get inside the top 6. You just don't want to be playing the one game and done game.
That is correct. So you kind of figure, well, then I guess maybe you kind of just chart your course. You know how you have skip days and rest days and load management, or this team we can turn it on against and this team we can't. I don't know if they just kind of, I wouldn't think you would have tossed away a game at home last night. So I don't know. And I guess you're not going to win them all, and you got to give the other team credit, but I don't like the idea that, the coach even said, this is a team that likes to, we shouldn't be getting in that kind of a game with them. We should be playing defense, and apparently they didn't play it well enough. And you look back as each game or week and month ticks by, you look back at games and go, it's probably one we could have had there. You look at the Washington game. Now, again, we had 4 starters out, but you lose to a team that hadn't won since New Year's Eve, or New Year's Day after New Year's. Those are games that can prevent you from being the 4 seed, 3 seed, or being 6, 7, 8, or heaven forbid you got to do that goofy play-in thing where you got, is it 7 versus 10 and 8 versus 9, and then somebody's eliminated, they have to play another one. I still don't even know how the pairings work, but well,
what hurts is you had a 5-game winning streak, and you looked at the schedule and go, man, we could have easily a 7-8 game winning streak here with the teams we're facing.
Correct.
Now that you lost to those two. Not to go Rosen on it, but if you look at the upcoming schedule, out of the next 6 games, 4 of them are against Rockets, Cavaliers, Thunder, Bucks. 4 of those 6 games. So it's going to be a little bit of a tough stretch here coming up. And because they only have that game and a half cushion from Golden State for the 11th spot, you never know. 2 weeks from now, we might be on the outside looking in if they don't get things turned around here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, not the end of the world. I get a lot of heat from some listeners, the basketball community, the diehard, the apologists for, and all the sports here in town have them, Vikings, Twins, Gophers, Wild, Wolves, the people that they've always got an excuse for why this didn't happen or why this did happen. And so they, was relax and this and that and the other thing, and they're going to gel and don't worry about it. And, maybe the other day when they, Johnny Krasinski said they had the best game of the year. Well, okay, maybe they did. All I know is the coach had to yell at him at a film session, and then he had to get kicked out of the game to get that kind of effort out of the team. He's not going to yell at every single film session. He's not going to get kicked out of every game because eventually that's going to lose its luster. It's like if your parents threaten to ground you, but they never do, then there's no teeth behind the punishment that has been, suggested. That says this is what's going to happen if you don't. There's none of that. So I don't know. I would like to see him to win that game. We'll pause when we come back. It's time for 5, 3, 4, 10 of what you got.
Yeah, the Twins actually spent some money today. Hartman had a harsh punishment, and should the Vikings sign a big-name wide receiver?